What's up, everybody? Liam O'Reilly, Vermont economic realtor. Hope you're doing well. Gonna leave a really interesting PowerPoint in the description for you folks to take a look at. Some things that the city of Burlington's talking about regarding changing their zoning to allow denser, a denser population, more housing in less area throughout the city. Um, you know, they, it's still in the works. It's still just being talked about. No policy changes are in the process of moving forward yet. To put that into perspective, the new Airbnb regulations that just took place in 2022, they started talking about that back in 2019. So as far as the time frame for a change in these regulations, we're probably looking 3 to 4 years out at a minimum, if anything were to change. Basically, what they're talking about doing is allowing property owners to build more units on their properties. They say that 83% of residential zoning in Burlington is low density right now. Now, back in 2008, Burlington passed a zoning ordinance allowing ADUs on in all zoning areas. So that's a good sign, and that was a step in the right direction. But with 83% of residential zoning being low density in the city, it really prevents property owners and builders from building housing styles that would be more affordable for first-time home buyers and for single-family households, for people around the median income in Burlington. And that's basically what they say. And that's what we've talked about on this channel, is that housing affordability is at an all-time low. The median household income is priced out of a single-family home right now. The condos are still affordable, relatively speaking, not as affordable as they once were, but the median income can still purchase those. But, if you are a single person as opposed to, a two-family household, it's still very difficult to purchase a property with the current interest rates and the current supply. So, basically, with the current zoning practices, you can, it encourages a larger single-family home as opposed to two, smaller units. So basically, if you had this is just an example, but if you had a quarter-acre lot, 0.25 acres, you could put a 4-bedroom single-family home. I don't know if these numbers are exactly correct, but you could put a 4-bedroom single-family home, but you wouldn't be able to put two-bedroom condos. The metrics might be off on that. Maybe you could put two-bedroom condos on a 0.25 acre lot, but that's just an example of how the zoning favors larger single-family homes over more affordable housing that would benefit people around the median income, and could potentially lower rents around the city because people might be more apt to rent out their 2-bedroom unit or rent out a duplex, something along those lines that's more chopped up and can help a wider variety of people. So I think that's great. I think freeing up zoning and less regulation around what people can build on their property is a good thing. So I'll leave that down in the description for you folks. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the Federal Reserve speech that I just read that relates to supply. It's not specifically about housing, but I figured since we're talking about supply in Burlington, potentially increasing the supply of homes around the median household within the next few years, this is the outlook that the Federal Reserve is looking at for supply. So this speech came out today. It's titled, "What Can We Learn from the Pandemic and the War About Supply Shocks, Inflation, and Monetary Policy?" Now, basically, this whole article is discussing what we've talked about on this channel, where the main issue, especially with housing, especially here in Vermont, comes from supply, in my opinion, not from demand. I mean, there's a ton of demand out there, but people need a place to live. We need more housing for people. You can see that with rents increasing drastically, home prices increasing drastically. There's not enough homes. There's not enough units for people for the people that want to live here. And essentially, that's what they're saying in this article, is that the supply shocks from ports being closed, from shipments not making it to us, from factories in China being shut down, from the war in Ukraine, are part of the reason why we're seeing such high levels of inflation. You know, as things move into the future, he says in his speech that these supply shocks are likely to continue, and we're seeing evidence of that with these protests going on in China right now. I mean, we'll have to see how that all plays out, but those protests and that unrest in China about their COVID lockdowns and the COVID lockdowns in general could have massive implications on the supply chain and on inflation expectations, leading to more rate hikes in the future. Now, one thing that he did say that leans more towards rate decreases or at least a pause, or maybe a slower rate of increase going into the future here, a sign of us reaching a peak on the Fed funds level, is that inflation expectations in America are going down. Most Americans now, according to the data that the Federal Reserve is looking at, expect prices to be the same or lower than they are today in the next 5 to 10 years. So they're expecting disinflation, so at least a lower, a lower rate of inflation, or maybe even deflation of prices slightly, which is what the Federal Reserve, according to Lael Brainerd, who gave this speech, is factoring into their decision on rate hikes. Is this expectation, because that consumer expectation influences their behavior. So, and you can see that in the housing market where a lot of buyers, obviously it's affordability is at an all-time low, but buyers that are priced out of the market are saying, I'm waiting for rates to come back down, and then I'll, or I don't think prices are going anywhere. I think rates are going to come down in the future. I'm going to hold off. And then, that's their thought process now, which may encourage the Federal Reserve to pause and bring some stability to at least the top of the market. But, in my opinion, as soon as they start to bring rates back down, everybody who has that thought is going to jump right back into the market, making, with the supply that hasn't improved. There's talks about it in Burlington, but it's not there yet. Rates are still too high to really give builders confidence to bring new inventory into the market. So, once these home buyers get more confidence, again, it's going to be too many buyers for too few homes in the market here. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the future with these inflation expectations that the Federal Reserve is looking at, and if that plays into the Fed's decision in December to hike rates. And it's going to be interesting to see what Jerome Powell says about that inflation expectation in his December meeting, in his press conference, regardless of what they decide to do with rates. I guess one more thing that I wanted to mention that doesn't, it isn't directly about the Vermont housing market, but something that he mentioned in his speech, that Brainerd mentioned in his speech, that I thought was really interesting, was he talks about how the severing of these supply chains and these supply chain shocks could happen in the future because of the variability and the uncertainty with foreign markets, which makes sense. We don't know if Russia is going to go to war with Ukraine or any other country. It's tough to predict that. It's tough to predict China's zero COVID policy and how that's going to impact inflation and the supply chain here in America. And so he said that as these supply shocks continue into the future, if they do continue, that is going to trigger more volatility in the inflation numbers, which, according to him, will encourage the Federal Reserve to tighten their rates more during these volatile inflation periods. When the supply chain gets disrupted, inflation peaks up, they're going to hike rates to try to fight inflation, bring demand down, and then hopefully the supply chain can catch up. But something else that he said, which I could see happening in the future with general goods, that might bring some stability to these rates, is that companies might have to choose: do they want to sell their product for a lower price but have periods where the supply chain is completely disrupted and you can't get the product? Or do you want to sacrifice that price, maybe sell it for a little bit higher, and but have the stability and have, not have these supply chain issues because the economy is becoming less global? And he used the word deglobalization many times in this speech. It's it's something that it's just very interesting hearing the Federal Reserve talk about the supply side instead of the demand. And I think, in my opinion, with the supply side here at home, if you want to encourage a better supply chain, higher rates is not the way to do it, because that's not how you stimulate businesses and that's not how you stimulate the economy. I think, if we do see major supply shocks and the Federal Reserve looks at that, it'll be interesting to see if they switch from lower or higher rates to lower inflation expectation to lowering rates to stimulate businesses to help out with the supply side and bring inflation down. So it's going to be something that I'm going to watch going into the future here, and look at the Federal Reserve's policies and try to see their thinking to put us in the best position here. Anyway, Liam O'Reilly, Vermont economic realtor. I wanted to say I've gotten a lot of feedback from viewers, from friends, from family members about my videos, and I appreciate the support. I'm taking all the feedback to heart. It's constructive feedback, which is great, and I'm going to try to do the best I can to make these videos better moving into the future here. Anyway, Liam O'Reilly, Vermont economic realtor. All my contact information is in the description, along with the 2 articles that I mentioned in this video. Leave a comment, let me know what you think, and feel free to reach out privately with any thoughts that you have, or if you're looking to buy or sell a home here in Vermont. All right, guys, see you in the next video.